You've probably been missing something huge in list building for Warhammer 40,000. I've been missing it for quite a while. Now, everyone's seen little examples of it, but one thing that's happened specifically in Warhammer 40,000 in 10th edition is everyone has dismissed the concept of characters when they're not leading units. Now, of course, we've got certain characters that are meant to be by themselves. The Combi Lieutenant with the Lone Op would be a great example. The Calidus Assassin would be a great example of this. But there are a lot of characters without Lone Op that are actually sometimes arguably even better when they're not leading their units. And recently I've come into some conversations with some of my coaching clients about this, and we might be onto something pretty cool. I'm going to share it all with you today. So let's just jump right into it. First off, what is the point of taking a solo character? Well, they can provide absolutely amazing value for very, very cheap prices. Just we're going to give you a lot of examples of some of the armies where this really works. And there's going to be a lot more examples other than what I'm covering today. As a matter of fact, I'm going to want to hear examples from you in the comments down below when certain characters should be run solo. These guys oftentimes get overlooked because they don't get to use some of their abilities. So if I have like, oh, I don't know, a Death Company captain with jump pack, and I'm not leading a unit with him, well, suddenly he doesn't get sustained hits anymore, which seems like a huge nerf. But then you start doing some comparisons, and I'm going to break this stuff down for you. It's pretty exciting. But when they're running solo, they can be much easier to hide. They can be much easier to position, much easier to deep strike. They could really screw your opponent up because when you have solo characters, what's happening is now it can really mess with target prioritization. It becomes exceptionally easy to both over and under commit into certain units. Now, some of the negatives of running solo characters are you get a lot less value out of stratagem usage. Most of the time, using a stratagem on just a normal character is much less efficient than using it on a character-led unit, right? And you're also giving up secondary points. But let's be honest, at this point in time, in 10th edition, if you're taking fixed, that means you're playing against Imperial Knights, or you're just like, I don't know, having giggles and not playing very seriously. Now, I know that's being facetious. Obviously, there are certain times, certain scenarios where people might take fixed, but giving up fixed is just not that big a concern right now, seeing as fixed is, generally speaking, a pretty bad way to play 10th edition. Of course, there are exceptions. Don't at me, bro. Or actually, you can at me. It's fine. All right. Now, let's look at some of these examples. So this started off when I was having a conversation with one of my clients who was playing Grey Knights, and then it continued with a conversation with a client who was playing World Eaters, and we're trying to figure out what is being missed in the current codexes, and we found some spicy stuff. So let's start with World Eaters, okay? All right. I'm actually just going to make this come down a little bit just so that you guys can see everything. All right, so first off, World Eaters, everyone's talking about, like, there's a relatively standard build. You're going to take 1 to 2 units of Berserkers. You're going to take probably a Footprints. You're going to take 2 to 3 squads of Forge Fiends, although that's probably going to change with the balance status late next week, but whatever. So what I want to talk about is some of the overlooked characters that could be run solo, and this might kind of blow your mind when we run like comparisons. So you have a Slaughterbound for 85 points. Now, a Slaughterbound is T6. He does move 10 base, and when you look at his attack profile here, he gets 6 attacks, weapon skill 2, strength 8, AP 2, damage 2. Now, he is also a captain, so effectively he gets a finest hour once per game, where he gets to add 3 to his attacks. And he's also going to end up getting devastating wounds. This is a very, very big deal. If he's leading a unit of 8 bound, he can also get both Scout and Deep Strike, which is also pretty cool. But when he doesn't lead them, he doesn't get Scouts and he doesn't get Deep Strike. So now for 85 points, let's say he does pop off and he does use his once per game special ability. That's going to take him to 10 attacks, because we're just going to do this off of Berserker Warband. The math changes a little bit if you're in a different detachment. So that'll take him to 10 attacks, right? Because he gets +1 for charging. Then he gets +3 for using his special ability. Hitting on 2s, strength 10, +2 strength, right? AP 2, damage 2 with devastating wounds. That is a lot. That easily wipes a squad of Marines. That easily does very heavy damage into a squad of something like elite infantry, so Blade Guard veterans, things like that. It is actually very, very big deal when you are going into some of these tougher units. You probably don't kill a Rhino with it, but you can come really close. And then when you stack it with general World Eater buffs, such as sustained hits or lethal hits, now suddenly you're into a territory where you might actually be popping transports, etc., just with this one guy, or completely wiping squads all on his own, because that is actually a ton of hitting power. You compare his 85 points cost to a 180 point cost of Berserkers to effectively be killing the same targets. that is a very, very interesting thing, especially in an army such as World Eaters, where points end up being very, very tight. You can run 3 of these dudes just running around the battlefield, all moving 10 inches, all just coming in and slapping with a massive 10 attacks at strength 10, AP 2, damage 2, each for 85 points. That is nothing to sneeze at. Now, it can actually get a little bit crazier, right? Because you can give them enhancements. Let's not forget what enhancements do. You throw in a Zerker Glaive on it for 25 points. Now you're looking at a 110-point model, but when it charges, this bad boy is going to have 10 attacks at strength 11, AP2, damage 3. Now you're absolutely blitzing these squads of like Blade Guard veterans. You're blitzing Terminators. You're blitzing Sword Brethren. You're blitzing Sanguinary Guard, especially when you consider the fact that, oh yeah, also I can get sustained hits and lethal hits. And in Berserk Warband, let's not forget, guys, you can spend 1 CP to give yourself a bonus blip of AP. When you give this guy the Berserker Glaive, he runs in and he might actually just straight up pick up War Dogs, which is such a massive amount of power and honestly a very cheap unit considering the points cost of most of the World Eaters units. That's very, very interesting. Now, it also gets very, very fascinating when you do this on some other things. So let's take this a step further. Let's add that same Zerker Glaive for +1 strength and +1 damage for 25 points. And we're going to add it to a Master of Executions who costs 60 points base. And we're not even going to lead a unit with Master of Executions. Instead, we're going to have, say, Karn with 10 Berserkers inside a Rhino, and we're also going to have a unattached unit of a Master of Executions who's also in that Rhino. Now, this dude charges out. He's going to get 6 attacks, hitting on 2s. It's going to go up to strength 10, not strength 9, because he'll get +2 strength for charging. So that'll take him strength 9, and you'll get +1 strength for the enhancement. So he goes to strength 10. AP2, once again, you can also spend a stratagem to give him AP3 if you wanted, but it takes him to damage 3. He natively gets to reroll all hits and wounds against character units. So for 85 points, you can send this dude out, and he can just run up into a squad of Sanguinary Guard. He can run up into a squad of Blade Guard veterans led by a Fight First Chaplain. You can run into a squad of Terminators led by a character. He can run into a lot of stuff. He natively has precision, and he has devastating wounds, and he's going to be re-rolling all hit and wound rolls. This guy can deal 200 points of damage like that by himself. And then he'll probably die. But for the amount of trauma he puts out for his one-shot missile, it's kind of bonkers how much damage he can do for such a low points investment. That's kind of wild. That's actually very wild. Now, let's say you don't give him the Zerker Glaive. Is it still useful? Well, for 60 points, dude, you can just send him out there, and then he goes and kills the Technomancer. And so now that unit of Wraiths is no longer led by a Technomancer, and the unit of Wraiths is very easy to kill. There's a lot of value, and I'm not saying you're going to do this every single game either, but there's a lot of value in actually running these guys solo. It's kind of wild. I'm going to give you a few more. World Eaters, let's talk about Karn. Everyone thinks that Karn needs to be run because he gives the reroll 1s to hit and wound, which is a great buff to his squad. But what happens when you run him solo? Dude, for 85 points, this dude runs out with 9 attacks, goes to strength 9 at AP2. Once again, you can obviously buff him up to give him AP3, flat damage 3. That's a massive attack profile into a lot of units in the game that just do not want to get hit by that. And he's only freaking 85 points. That has the ability to punch up so hard. And this is completely forgetting the fact that World Eaters have the ability to give, once again, sustained hits and lethal hits. All right. You can do this on other more obvious things. Now, I understand that Demon Princes don't really go into this conversation because they're like monstrous creatures, so they're meant to be taken solo. But just real fast, because I haven't seen people talking about him, the Winged Demon Prince in World Eaters, this dude, it moves 14 inches, and you can give him the Glaive, which would give him an incredible 9 strength 11 AP2 or damage or AP3 damage 4 attacks. Yeah, so basically Death Guard lose. Or you can give him an unbelievable 17 strength 9 AP1 or AP2 damage 2 attacks. With, once again, sustained lethal, these types of things. This is actually shocking. You can also make him a better version of a Slaaneshi Demon Prince, not Emperor's Children Demon Prince, right? Because you can give him the Helm of Brazen Ire for -1 damage, and then suddenly he's just hits harder natively. He doesn't quite do as many mortals on the charge. He's only going to do an average of 3 mortals, not an average of 5 mortals on the charge, which I admit is different. But he's a very, very usable model. So there are a lot of characters that aren't using. Now I'm going to give you examples of some other armies. So let's look at orcs for a second. I got two types of characters that are honestly just quite useful by themselves. So honestly, a solo freaking war boss in Warhard, not a bad idea. This guy is 75 points. He runs out with 9 attacks at strength 11, AP 2, damage 2, sustained hits 1. That's not nothing. Now, I'm certainly not saying that you're always going to want to do this, but if you're not trying to run 3 squads of knobs and you only have or maybe you're running a 1 squad of Breakaboys who's being led by your freaking war boss. You've got 1 squad of knobs led by a war boss, and then you've got 75 points left over, and you're like, I guess I take another squad of Storm Boys. Tons of times, a solo war boss is going to be worth a lot more than a squad of freaking Storm Boys, and he can just run out there and do the business. So it's not something to just dump. Like looking back at it, I've had games where I would have been better served by taking a solo war boss rather than an extra squad of Storm Boys. You can have a solo mega boss, and I would give him the Super Cyborg body enhancement, which is 15 points. Now, this used to be a lot better when the solo mega boss was only 80 and not 90. And this would have put him at 95 points total instead of 105. But it's still actually pretty darn impressive, because if you look at his attack profile, remember in the WoW, he'll go up to 5 attacks at strength 13 and damage 3. And you look at his profile here, he's a T6, 2-up arm save, 5-up invulnerable save with 7 wounds. Now suddenly he gets a 4-up feel no pain. Basically, that means that this guy is impossible to skirmish with. So for 105 points, he is going to just beat the crap out of any skirmishing unit at the same points value. And there's basically just nothing your opponent can do about it. He will not solo a war dog particularly well, but he's going to actually deal significantly damage into it, and the war dog won't be able to kill him back, which actually does matter. So he's not a bad choice for a solo unit, especially when you find yourself in that awkward position where you've got 110-ish points left over. What do you get with that? You get an unled unit of knobs? Because I think I'd much rather have this guy than an unled unit of knobs. So don't sleep on these solo characters. I've got 2 more armies that I want to break down for you. This is a super interesting idea here for Blood Angels, because this is the army where I'm really on right now. Well, Rage Fueled Captain is probably like one of the most powerful units in Blood Angels that they can harness. So he's a captain, it's just a normal Space Marine captain, and you give him sustained hits 3 once per game. It's very expensive. It's a 35-point enhancement, so it makes that model cost 115 points. Then you're going to have him lead a unit of Assault Intercessors, so he gets re-roll wound rolls. So it goes up to what is that? That's a cost of 195 points or something like that. Math. Anyway. That's a big investment, but you pop Finest Hour on him. Suddenly he runs in, he smashes with 9 full reroll, because you're going to have to use Oath of Moment on him, of course, and you get to start fishing for the sustained hits 3 that go up to strength 10, and now it's all at AP 2, damage 2 with full rerolls to wound, and it's also devastating wounds. That is a lot of trauma. The problem is that unit is 195 points, and it's a suicide missile. It does deal a lot of damage. I'm not saying it's a bad unit. I'm not making any complaints here. But it can be very, very challenging to fit this unit in the game, into your army. Like for me, my army, it's really hard for me to fit him in. I can't do it while keeping the game plan of my army alive. But what I can do is I could give a solo Death Company captain with a jump pack who costs 75 points. I can give him this enhancement. This guy is a Death Company, which means he's going to natively re-roll all hit rolls. I don't have to worry about how I'm going to deliver him. I'm not going to need like an impulsor to deliver this guy like I would with a captain, because he's just a solo model who moves 12 inches. I can start him on the board. It's very easy to hide him. I can deep strike him in a position where it's very easy to hide him. I don't need Oath of Moment on him because he natively gets to re-roll all hit rolls. I can send him out. I pop his once per game sustained hits 3 because of the enhancement. I can also spend 1 CP to give him both lethal and +1 to wound. I don't care about battle shocking him because I know he's going to die anyway. But he one-taps a war dog on average, because that's going to be 6 attacks with a power fist, full rerolls to hit. Every 6 is sustained 3 and lethal, and then he's going to be wounding them on 2s when you also give him the lance. This is a disgustingly valuable model for only 110 points. And since he's only a single model, it's very, very easy to get him where he needs to go without being, obliterated in the shooting phase. That's kind of wild when I think about it. I'm taking this even a step further. Like, how can I make this even grosser? And I'm not saying, by the way, that you would do this, right? I just want to start expanding y'all's minds so that you can think about this a little more flexibly, right? a solo Gravis captain, and angelic inheritors, or even let's go crazy with it. Let's take 6 captains, so 3 normal captains and then 3 Blood Angel captains, all of which, since you're playing angelic inheritors, are going to get reroll 1s to hit and wound, and probably, what is it, like fallback, shoot, and charge or something like that, right? That is crazy because you can have 6 solo 80-point models that just go out of them. You can run all 6 of them inside 1 impulsor, mind you. And these guys, each one is going to come in with 8 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s natively, so they don't need Oath of Moment. Wounding, it's going to be strength 8 power fist attacks, right, with devastating wounds and rerolling 1s to wound natively. These guys hit harder than a 5-man unit of Death Company, or at least as hard. But they also are all going to give each other, like, they can discount a stratagem. They are super easy to hide. They will really screw up with your opponent's target prioritization because now suddenly your opponents have to figure out, okay, how am I going to split my fire? It makes it super, super easy for your opponents to look at, like, say, 3 captains and say, I'm going to have to shoot my Lancer at just 1 captain. Or I'm going to shoot my Lancer and I'm going to shoot one of my laser destroyers at 1 captain, one of my laser destroyers at the other captain. And then suddenly you make 2 4-up invulns and nothing happens. Or you make 1 4-up invuln and only 1 dies. Or he shoots both into 1 captain, you make 2 4-up invulns and nothing happens. It makes it crazy easy to force your opponent to over/under commit into these models, which is not something that can be said if they're leading a unit, because then it becomes very easy to focus their fire. So it's an interesting idea, and I'm not claiming that everyone should go out and buy 6 captains and run that, and like that's what you need to do. But it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and how can we get more juice out of our units? A captain in Gravis armor, even in Liberator Assault Group, this dude's going to go up to 6 Power Fist attacks and 3 Chainsword attacks that's going to be strength 6 and damage 2. And he's -1 damage. And he's T6. And he's only 80 points. Bro, that's better than a unit of Assault Intercessors in almost every single scenario. Like, almost every single scenario. He's significantly harder to kill. He hits quite hard. And he's only 80 points. So he's costing the same as a bunch of other units. But he's so much more utility. This is something I'm really going to start building out myself, and I hope I'm getting you guys to consider things as well. I got one more that I want to show you guys, and then I'm going to probably peace out for the day. So, Grey Knights. Now, you can take the Grey Knight Librarian for 80 points, and this guy has a shooting attack, which is 18 inches. It's blast. It's D6 plus 3 shots. Hits on 3, strength 8, AP 2, damage 2. Now, in Warp Bane, which is the Grotmist attachment, he gets to reroll all hit rolls. So suddenly this dude drops down and just deletes a Marine squad. And I'm not saying he's particularly crazy durable, but what he is he's a 2-up armor save, 4-up invuln, in cover, T5 with 5 wounds. And that's not easy to kill. Not super hard to kill, but once again, you can't just shoot 1 Lancer at him, because what if he makes 2 4-ups? And there's literally nothing you're going to do if you shoot a unit of intercessors at him. So you have to actually dedicate real firepower into one of them, and there's 3 of them. How do you split your fire into that? It really screws up your opponent's target prioritization. Not to freaking mention, this guy has 80 points, and the next cheapest thing in the army, I mean, outside of dedicated transports, is going to be a strike squad at 120 points. So you can get so much more coverage across the board with 3 of these bad boys. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful thing, and I really strongly think it's worth your time considering these solo characters. I got one bonus one that just came to me. It's not written on the slide. But you can run a solo Brotherhood champion. A solo Brotherhood champion. And let's give him the Radiant and whatever enhancement, which causes him to cause an extra wound every single time, or an extra mortal wound every single time he wounds his target. 6-inch deep strike him. Have him charge into the unit of Wraiths. Boom, he's going to assassinate that Technomancer. You don't even need him leading a unit. You can just have him go do it. Sure, he'll die afterwards, but he might not with a 2-up armor save and against an AP 1 unit. That's valuable. There's a lot of value in running some of these characters solo. Hopefully, I have inspired you guys to think a little bit more about this. I'm starting to look at what I can run in my armies, how I can shave points by just running the character instead of the character and the unit. Do I really need the unit? Where do I need these breakpoints? I'm really starting to flesh this idea out, and I think you guys are going to come up with some really good things for your armies as well. In the comments down below, type some of the things that I'm not talking about. I want to hear about some of the other characters that you guys are running solo and where you're getting value out of this. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on it. Until next time, crump on. Bye-bye.